I'm going to finish up from point A to point B. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Recovery Classroom. My name is Drew. I am alcoholic. Today, I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I cannot be any more grateful. Over the last couple monologues, I've taken you from point A to point B, how I went from being anti-God, anti-religious, to being pro-spirituality. I went from no God in my life to knowing God in my life, and I want to kind of wrap all this up today. In the first monologue, I talked about how from a really young age, I was, my parents and my pastors had given me this idea and impression of God. People all throughout my life had told me how their interpretations of God and how I had to live my life based on their interpretations of God. And then, of course, I became alcoholic. And over the years of alcoholic misery, of not feeling like I felt into human circles and sure as hell not feeling like God loved me, I poured myself into alcoholism, or alcohol poured itself into me, I should say. And I became alcoholic and I felt miserable. And somewhere along the line, by July of 2021, I reached the tipping point. In other words, I went from being angry and disappointed in God not loving me, God not thinking I'm good enough. While I was still angry, I was still disappointed in God and thinking all those things about God. My priority then became trying to figure out how to stop drinking, or at least manage my drinking. So instead of God taking a central role in my life, my alcoholism was, and my desire to stop drinking became primary focus of my existence at that point. I'm glad that happened, because by me seeking out a solution to my alcoholism, I found a solution for my God problem. And that's what I want to share with you today. I've always said that chapter 4 in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, that was what woke me up. And I thank God for that, for the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I thank God for that. I made the promise to go back and read chapter 4, to read the whole big book. Chapter 4, I learned a lot of things. See, I had this whole thing about God on page 44 of the big book, paragraph 2. To one who feels he is an atheist or agnostic, such an experience, a spiritual experience, seems impossible. But to continue on as he is means disaster. So in other words, I think is this spiritual experience that they're talking about in the big book, I think it's impossible. But if I don't start believing it's possible, that means I'm going to die as an alcoholic. I didn't want to do that. If a mere code of morals or a better philosophy in life were sufficient to overcome my alcoholism, many of us would have recovered long ago. That's on page 44, paragraph 4, one of my favorite lines. I thought my life, my code of honor, my code of morals, if you will, I thought that was enough to get me through life, and obviously it wasn't. I was wrong because it made me alcoholic, and I obviously something had to change. I had to be willing to change. And the chapter 4 in the big book really started making me question myself. And you hear this all the time in the rooms: honesty, open-minded, and willingness. I had to start being honest with myself and asking myself honest questions. Is it possible that I'd been living my life and my practices regarding God? Is it possible that I've been living all those based on other people's perceptions and interpretations of their God? Yes, absolutely. How open-minded was I? I'd always said I was an open-minded person, but was I really? See, the fact of the matter is, I wanted to hold on to those old ideas that had been instilled in me, ingrained in me from years ago. I wanted to hold on to those old ideas, and I did not want to consider any alternative or competing theory or idea that went against what I held on as far as those old ideas. Hold on to those old ideas. I didn't want to accept that, so I would just immediately discount it and discredit it and ignore it and write it off and reject it. And then I had to be willing to say, okay, these are the ideas I've been holding on to. Let me set those on the shelf and let me consider those new ideas. I had to ask myself and start that internal dialogue with myself. Is it possible everything I've been told about God was wrong? Do I really think I know all there is to know about God? Of course not. If I refuse to accept new and favorable ideas about God, why was I so unwilling to let go of the old unfavorable ideas about God? Is it possible that I may have just been believing things that were incorrect my whole life? And if I was wrong about God, what else in my life could I have been wrong about? At the fundamental root of it all, it comes down to, and as the big book says, it was a matter of, my problem was having a power greater than myself. I relied upon my own power to stop drinking. That didn't work. I had to find that power for me, which was God, and start relying upon Him. In order to find that power, I had to be honest open-minded and willing, honest enough to say, Drew, you may be wrong, open-minded enough to say, hey, let's consider this alternative idea, and willing, let me give it a shot. I'm not going to reject it and discount it and dismiss it right off the bat. Those three things, and that's why you hear this in the rooms a lot, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Those three things really came home to me, especially my own interpretation and views about God. I got to build my own and define my own conception of God based upon what I read in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, specifically chapter 4. I hope that helps close the loop. I hope that helps bring you closer to your own definition of God. It doesn't have to be my definition. It doesn't have to be your pastors or your parents or your neighbors or whoever. It gets to be your own conception. So with that being said, I'm out of time. Thank you guys for letting me come in and share 5 to 10 minutes of your day with you. This, you guys absolutely keep me sober, and I cannot be any more appreciative. We'll be talking again soon. Remember, guys, you can't get drunk if you don't take that first drink.